Hello, this is Nerissa Golden, and I am so happy to be here today with author Vanessa Farrell. Vanessa, congratulations on your new book. It's
Thank
called
you.
Delayed, Not Denied, The Journey of Singleness. It's Worth the Wait. That's a big title. Tell us what drove you to write this book.
So, what drove me to write this book is that in 2020, it was a big year for me. I was just about to turn 50 in April of that year. And, at most of us do, we get kind of pensive at the beginning of the year. But that year was something different because I was going to be turning 50 and I started to take a retrospective view of my life. And by society standard, everything looked peachy. But to be honest, it was, wow, I am going to be single and I have no prospect. I am single as a Pringle, as I would say, and no prospects in sight. And I really thought about it for a long time. And I said, you know what? I want to chronicle my journey of singleness. And it wasn't a way of like, oh, let me rehash, blame, shame. It wasn't about that. It was about what are the experiences that I have had and how can I learn from them? So I thought it was a ordained assignment and I embarked on it in January of 2020.
I seem to remember you telling me, it might have been a year or two ago, that you were working on this book. So, congratulations on completing it. For any author, you know the struggle of sometimes you've got great plans and then life interrupts. And so, to be diligent enough to finish it is always a feat. Doesn't matter the size of the book. So, congratulations on this really important project. I want to start by saying that. I totally enjoyed reading it, and probably too because I'm over 50. Well, I'm 50 now, almost 51, and in that same place of being single. Have been married in the past, but definitely been single for longer than I was married. Um, and so the book was really thought provoking for me. Now, I want to start with that acronym that you use, WAIT.
Mhm.
Tell us what that WAIT word means and how did you frame the book around this concept?
Yeah. So the book is really built on the foundation of weight. Throughout the process of writing the book, I've had many mentors, coaches, and that was one of the discussion that I had with one of the coaches, like, really think through that weight as an acronym. And it took me about a week or so. And I sat down and I came up with this acronym called WAIT, because I know that was part of the book title. And the weight, the W in the weight is seek wisdom. The A is for keep asking. The I is to be intentional. And the T is to trust God's timing. So throughout the book, I was able to thread that through because it's all about the weight. And what's more important is not only waiting, but how do you wait well? And what does waiting well looks like?
That is so true. No, when I read that phrase in your book, wait well, I had a good laugh because for years I always said the scripture says, wait on the Lord, right? It never said I had to wait well, meaning I could be as miserable as I wanted to be. And but the truth is, you do have to wait well, otherwise the process becomes very, very difficult. You are frustrated. You will miss the moment because you're
Mhm,
thinking that you're doing something that you don't really want to do,
mhm.
versus allowing it to just be part of the journey that you're on. Um, Speaking of the journey, Vanessa, you were so honest in this project. I was amazed by how open you were about your relationship stories starting as a teenager. And I think that's actually what gives the book so much value and weight is that you literally put your heart and you open your journals and everything. You allowed us to read from your life. So kudos to you for that. Now, talk to us about that transition of, let's say, figuring out teenage love to young adult love. And you talked a bit about when you talked about this, the issue of forgiveness and not knowing, still treating it adult forgiveness like how you would as a little kid. Again, your analogies, the stories that you use from your childhood to really bring everything to life, brilliant, brilliant. Everyone should be take a read of this. So talk to us about that. How did you become aware that there's this big difference between the two, and you can't treat forgiveness and moments of this of things being so profound as if you were still in the playground.
Exactly. So the chapter you're referring to is called Sorry Can't Cool It. And I talk about, growing up, what was the culture of forgiveness in my environment, whether it was school, church, home. And basically what I learned was say sorry. That's all, like say sorry to that person. And you would say sorry, but nothing of real substance. Sometimes you don't even know what you're saying sorry for, other than the
Right.
person went and tattled on you, and now you're requested to say sorry. And I find that as I became as an adult, that those strategies were showing up in my relationship, where people would just say, I'm sorry, and I would just accept it without really getting to the meat or the bones of what it is happening. Like, why did this happen? How are we going to make sure that this does not happen again? So I think as I got older, I realized the I'm sorry was just not the appropriate way to function in relationships. And over time, kind of move away from the kindergarten strategy to a more adult strategy.
Yeah, that phrase, you have to think about it like love. Love has a corresponding action. I could tell you I love you, but I need to see it. I need to feel it, and it's not necessarily so much a feeling. There's a visual action that must take place when somebody says that they love you. And in the same way, when we say I'm sorry, it usually means I'm sorry I hurt you. I hurt you because and it could even just been a communication issue. You didn't realize that the way I responded to you, you found aggressive or assertive,
Right.
and you're not used to that. And so it's important to articulate what is it that you're sorry about, and how are we going to make sure that I don't hurt you the same way again, or we don't repeat that action. But so I love how you handled it. The example you used, that was that really showed that there had to be a different action taking place, because definitely what you were getting back was certainly not what you needed. And I thought that was wonderful. Talk to us. I love the fact that you shared your education journey, and you've got a lot of titles behind your name. You've worked really hard for it. And Vanessa, I remember, especially in the late 80s, 90s, when it was kind of this resurgence, especially in America, of Black women being educated on top. And so you were doing everything right. You were doing what was expected, that you were just supposed to go ahead, get those degrees, get that bag, the apartment, a nice car, and all of those things. And then it's like, what? Isn't that enough? How did you navigate? Because you talk a bit about the fact that you kind of woke up one day and realized, wait a minute, there's stuff missing. How was there guilt attached to that feeling, knowing that you'd already accomplished so much based on what they said you should have?
I don't know so much if it was guilt, because there was, no regret about the accomplishments that I had achieved. But I think what I really stopped and really thought about, it was just how gung-ho I was in attaining those things that I totally put everything else on the back burner. And I think it wasn't intentional. I think it was because of my experience of failing in the past because I was not able to handle two masters, as my mom would say. You can't serve two masters at the same time. And it's so interesting how we pull these things from our childhood into our adulthood, knowingly or unknowingly. Because I thought to myself, listen, I don't want to get derailed. And if I go get into a relationship, that's a possibility. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's definitely was very clear, was that you were still carrying this message. And
Mm-hmm.
your mom meant well, and there was nothing wrong with what she said. But it's our inability when we're making those transitions from being a child to an adult now, saying, okay, how am I going to retranslate this information into my current life so I have a full, well-rounded life? And yeah, sometimes it does come at a cost, but you're there with that. You have to sit with that. Um, Coming from small island Montserrat, and you talk about the fact that you did that dating isn't a thing. It's in a lot of ways it still isn't. It's very much a very undercover kind of life.
Mm-hmm.
As I say, you stay with somebody, um, but you never physically. Sometimes you won't even see that they're a couple because they don't go out together.
Mm-hmm.
There's no sense of affection. So that, unfortunately, that's still very much a part of a lot of how Montserrat still connects, and some of the other islands have that same challenge as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, how did you navigate this space of being in America where dating is the norm, and kind of getting up the courage to say, okay, I am going to actually go on this date, and then you were getting set up on blind dates and things like that. How was that process for you?
As I said in the book, it was an interesting space for me to sit. And I had coworkers who were, it was like a thing. It was like, that's what they do. They just date like every other Friday it was a new date. And I'm sitting there like, what, back home, we have a word for this, you know?
Exactly.
But anyhow, people, they were encouraging me. And, I thought about it and I'm like, this is exactly how you meet people. This is how you understand who people are. That's how you get an opportunity to choose. Because I think what the culture that we come from, we are picked. We don't choose. Like people pick us, a guy pick us, and next thing you know, 20, 25 years gone by, and you realize, like, I didn't choose this person. This person picked me. So,
Yeah.
but dating for me, it was interesting. And I had some great experiences. It gave me the opportunity to learn what I was liking about men, what I didn't like about men. And I'm thinking, like, wow, had I had this experience, younger, or even if younger girls today could understand the concept of dating. And dating doesn't mean that you have to be in this serious, intimate relationship with someone. It's just a time of gathering data. Dating is simply gathering data. It doesn't mean mating, it's just data gathering. That's all it is.
I definitely like that phrase, that it's data gathering. Now, I suppose there are different schools of thought on the idea of what dating should be. You're
Mm,
saying that you are of the school of thought that it should be data gathering because you are out there trying to understand how you relate to men, what men are like in terms of social environment, and what you're looking for and what they're looking for. There are other people that would say, well, then you should date with intent to marry.
mhm,
Up until then, it's just like a social thing.
mhm.
How do you feel about maybe group dating or just having lots of friends of the opposite sex so that you can get some of this data versus not necessarily dating one? Because then you're also saying if we're dating, it means we're dating multiple people. We're not
Mhm,
individually dating. So,
mhm,
coming from small island and Caribbean people who, like you said, there's a name for that. If I'm out this weekend with this person and the next weekend you can with a different person, how do we navigate that in an environment, in a culture where you don't just go out with different men week to
right.
week to week? So what do you suggest? How do you suggest our women handle this?
So, I think it's gradual. I think for younger women, I think gathering in groups, like dating is in groups, is perfect. I think as you're young, you're going out, you don't want to get in a situation where you're by yourself. So as you younger, I think that group concept of dating is important. But I think as you get older, there needs to be a time where you want to kind of branch off and be able to speak to people, because now you're thinking about dating differently, because I'm not thinking when I was, 16, 17 that I'm dating towards marriage. Like that was the last thing from my mind. But I think as you get older, maybe you start hitting the 30s or whatever, it might shift. And some people, it might be earlier, but you now start date differently. So you want that one-on-one time with that person to really understand who they are. And if you have had that foundation of group dating, you kind of understand what it is you're looking for, and you understand how to ask the question. You're comfortable in the space of the opposite sex, because I think a lot of us are not comfortable in the space of the other person. We don't know what to say. We don't know what the right questions are to ask, because we were never told. People say it should come innately, but I don't think so. I really don't.
No, let's talk about that asking, because you opened the book with this conversation around kind of getting thrown in the deep end and feeling very out of yourself, because everybody around says like, oh, you're too serious, why are you asking that, and so you kind of dumbed down your usual personality, your usual inquisitiveness, trying to not push the guys away. So how do you get to that place of confidence where I'm not overthinking the process, like wanting to know, I hope he doesn't think I'm, paranoid or anything. Because we have these conversations in our head.
Yeah.
These are the things happening. So how did you get to that place again of saying, no, this is really important to me, that I know who he is, that I understand his feelings about certain things, and what would be some of the questions that if you think it's okay to ask, on the first date?
Yeah. So it over time, you grow your confidence. Because when I was younger, you figure if you ask a question, you will rock the boat and you will end the relationship. But in retrospect, I'm like, if I could ask you one question and you break up with me, then that wasn't really a relationship. But in my mind, as a young woman, you tiptoe around these questions because you are scared. You don't want to lose that. But over time, you realize that the information that you've been functioning on is murky data. So you have murky data, you're making decision based on murky data, and you realize, you know what, I have to ask the right questions. So questions like, what's your intention? Are you, because if now you're dating towards marriage, now you have to ask the question, what is your vision for a long-term relationship? Are you interested in marriage? Are you interested in having children? Because I won't be able to do that for you. Do you have your own children? Have you been married before? Why did your relationship end? What's your relationship with your mom? Is your mom still alive? Like, these are key questions, and you're observant of that person. Sometimes it's not only asking question, you have to observe how people handle situation, their consistency in certain things, and you're able to discern from certain things like that. Yeah. So over time, I've grown my confidence over time to realize, like, I don't care if you don't want to answer my question. I may not see you again, but I'm going to ask the question to know if you're wasting my time or not.
Right. And I think that's important. Like you mentioned before, you have to choose, and I think women are waiting to be chosen, and they just, I suppose, in some ways almost feel as if, okay, well, he picked me, so then I must go along with it. Versus, no, you now get to interview and say,
Yes.
are you worth my time? should I
Yes.
be investing in that? You have a beautiful way in the book of describing certain experiences and also things. And I think I'm thinking of one. I wish I did write it down, but where you talk about making this emotional investment and recognizing that, should I be doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're already giving it your all, even before you are getting that feedback that says it's worth it. And I think that's what happens a lot of times is because, and you talk about this, in that section on communication, in that because you are afraid to ask, you are
Mm-hmm.
then making up stories in your mind to fill in the
Yes.
blank
Yes.
because our mind works like that. Our mind doesn't work with gaps and things like that. Everything must have meaning. And so, in the
Exactly.
absence of you not knowing the truth, you made up
Yes.
stories,
You
and
fill it
then
in.
you put emotions on top of those stories that you made up, which are false.
Yes. Yes, because it's
Um,
so interesting that we always want to see the best in people. And we
true.
paint these pictures of people that are as far from the truth as the East is from the West. And you might think that you have something happening here with someone and you ask them a question, they'll be like, "Are we just kicking it? Are we just shooting the breeze?" And you're like, "What? I had my wedding plan." It's like you really need to be specific because you can't assume. And the thing is, as I've said to a lot of my friends, like, if you don't know if he's your boyfriend, then he ain't your boyfriend. Like, there is certain
Very
things
true.
that you should know. There shouldn't be any, this is not a black and white, this is a black and white situation. There's
Yeah.
no distortion there, you know?
Right. No
Over,
ambiguity.
yeah.
He is going to be very clear about who you
Mhm,
are to him. And
mhm.
you should feel that level of clarity. And if you're not getting it, you need to ask for it. If you're not happy with the result, then you can either keep asking or you have to make a decision that whether this is enough for you or not. I
Correct.
think sometimes too, uh, another powerful thing in the book or the quote from the women,
Mhm,
the single women, the married women that you got them to share their different
mhm.
thoughts on the questions at the end of every chapter. Brilliant. Um, and some of them broke my heart
Mm,
because I you just felt their pain. You felt
mhm,
this person is like, I've tried this, it didn't work, and so I'm
mhm,
moving on, it's apart. So I suppose my question to you is, and again, because you really poured your stories and your pain and your messes and all of the things that went wrong, what went right, you share it. Why are you still hopeful that that marriage, that finding the love of your life is still is something you want even after all of that?
I could equate that, and some people may say that I'm off, that may not be right. If you desire to have a child and you don't, that it didn't materialize and you're still in that childbearing age, you're not giving up hope. You still have that hope. I feel that this desire is something that is bigger than me, is something that's placed on my heart. And we're all in some way waiting for something. So I believe, if I truly believe that, and I do believe I want to get married, I have to I have to be positive about my outlook. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't engage in conversation with women who talk badly about men. I don't carry on that thing about calling men other names, because then I'm saying, you are waiting if you're in that waiting period, you are describing the people that you are looking forward to. You're lumping all these people together. So I think I have
Right.
to stay hopeful because I myself, is in that waiting room. So I just cannot lose hope, because then it will be for naught. And the other thing to say is that my hope, or my desire is not necessarily in the relief. So getting married, would not be like the end all be all. It's not like, okay, get married now. Whew. Okay, once, you know, it's not once you get married, then what? I think waiting, and as a woman my age, you know, this will be a gift. This will be a gift from God. Now, how do you treat that gift, what you've been waiting for so long? You know, how do you thank God for that gift? Are you going to be the submissive or the multi-wife? You know, so always looking at that hope that you're longing for, but not that, oh, relief or restoration or healing or anything like that, but just what you get to be grateful for and to show God's promises or favor towards you.
Okay. Do you think the things that you were looking for in a man have changed over the years? Like what you wanted in your 20s is different now that you're in your 50s?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think the tall, dark, handsome, I mean, those would be nice. I mean, don't get me wrong. You want to be able to look at someone who's amazing, but you realize after dating that these are just, there's a facade. These are things that are fleeting. And now you're looking for things that are more valuable, things are more substantive, things that are more lifelong, you know, someone who is faith, you know, who's a strong faith, someone who's caring, someone who's kind, someone who's financially sound, like someone who, you know, would be there for you through the thick and the thin. You know, you're looking for something that is would last as opposed to those fleeting things. So for me,
Right.
yes, that list has significantly shrunk, but it's substantially more substantial.
Got you. Got you. Now, in your chapter on the one about what about the table, about what do you bring to the table?
Mhm,
I thought that was an interesting chapter. I
mhm.
especially love the quote where she says, the lady says, I am the table. I thought that was brilliant. But the conversation you have with your sister is was quite profound, and it
Mhm.
made me think again about the things that we used to equate what a good relationship, what you needed to be to bring the to a relationship. So,
Mhm.
and I think it's a lot of reasons why you have a lot of women who are already operating like they're married, even though they're single.
Yes.
So they're
Yes.
cooking for the man, they
Oh,
keep house good, they're having sex, and they gotta be a lady in the streets and a freak in the bed kind of thing, you know? So they're already doing all of the marriage things as if they're out there saying, "Hey, look at me, I've got the goods," and then they're still not getting bought, you
yeah.
know, because you are
Yeah.
busy showcasing all of these skills that you bring to the table, you
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
versus that. And so that's a really important chapter that I hope people take time and
Mm-hmm.
unpack for themselves, because I do remember a time when that was my thing. I had this list of things that I thought made me a good woman to be
Mm-hmm.
married, but then I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, but then what? But then what? You know? So then you recognize that there has to be a lot more depth. There has to be
Mm-hmm.
a lot more value that you are bringing and that they are bringing. And it's not necessarily something that you can check off a list, you know,
Absolutely.
in one way or the
Mm-hmm.
next. Yeah, I think that's brilliant. Um, your chapter on menopause.
If
I
I was
wanted to
if I was
laugh.
a
I wanted to
protagonist,
cry. I wanted to say, why you put our business out there? Um, oh my gosh. Um, first of all, again, this is such an important book because as small island women, we're not
Mhm,
having these conversations, okay? So you're not necessarily, unless it is that you have a close older woman in your life who is
mhm,
comfortable with communicating to you about these
mhm.
different things in life. A lot of times you feel like you're winging it, and
Yeah.
especially if you go from your 40s being Miss Successful, you got the world, by the tail, and you're just rocking it. And then one day, boom, like, hello, this, this is your body talking, and I have different
Yes.
plans for you now.
Yes.
And you're like, no, I will not surrender to this. Yes, to this. So Vanessa, I, look, look. I was like, this one need a glass of wine. This chapter. Let's talk about that. How
Mhm.
did you, because you talk about the fact that you literally thought, okay, menopause, we ain't doing this dating thing. Let's just skip over this part.
Yeah.
So how did you find the courage to do that? To still be going on dates, although your body is going through these changes, and it's literally hijacking you in the middle of a date, in the middle of life. How did you?
Well, the thing about this menopause thing, it's so sinister because you could go on a date and it doesn't show itself. You don't know when it's gonna come. So you go and you hope that everything is fine, but you just never know when she's gonna sneak in to like, hey, you think you all that? I'm here. But yeah, I mean, menopause, I would have been remiss if I did not speak about menopause and how it has totally shifted my life in terms of my temperament. Like, I was like, why do I feel so angry, And I'm realizing that these hormones are flaming and all these things are happening in my body. And, I'm consistently asking women, are you experiencing this? My mom said she didn't experience menopause. My sister said she didn't experience it. All they know is that my period was missed. And I'm like, this is impossible. There's no way that I could be having these horrible, Nerissa, horrible experience. And you're telling me that my mom, my sister, who they say scientifically that you should mimic,
Yeah.
they didn't experience those things.
I
I
think
remember.
it's different though. I think, sorry, just to cut you there. I think, especially if it's more than one daughter,
Uh-huh.
not it's just like genetics. Everybody's gonna get a piece of it, but all of them won't. So like my daughters, there's only one daughter. I have three daughters. There's only
Mm-hmm.
one who genetically she has the same experiences of those parts of
Mm-hmm.
her life. Like the other two are completely, they're like
Wow.
yeah. So I don't think everybody gets the same deal, unfortunately. And I
Mm-hmm.
guess you just pick the long straw
I was
there.
at the front of the line for this. And, I get angry sometimes because I just can't understand, like, what? Like, how is this possible? And it's funny because when I went back to Montserrat last year, I was asking a few people, and I have yet to meet one woman who said to me that that she felt this whole thing that I was describing. They were like, oh, my period just stopped and nothing. But in retrospect, I remember growing up and I would see older women, they always had a handkerchief or they always have a towel or something, and they'll be blotting themselves because they were just sweating profusely. And I'm thinking in retrospect, they were probably going through menopause, but there wasn't a word for it. Nobody was talking about it, you know?
I was going to tell you that I do know someone who went through it, and I remember at the time thinking, wow. But I think that's actually one of the issues that I think around women conversations that we don't have, especially in the small islands, is because we are so used to keeping so much of what we go through to ourselves that we don't actually understand that this is actually not just you. It's actually a normal part of the process of
Mm-hmm.
being a woman. And also, it's okay that you talk about it and you express that,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I'm having a tough time with this.
Mm-hmm.
It's important. We definitely aren't having enough of these conversations about these life processes. And I think if we can actually help our daughters
Mm-hmm.
sooner, they are
Mm-hmm.
going to have a lot better handle on the changes
Yes.
that come for them. So you think that, because you talk about the fact that the person you were dating at the time was younger, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, do you think that's a conversation you should have had, or that it's okay to have, or is it you just think that he should notice what's happening there? Do you think he should have clued in that hello,
No, I
or
think that
would
was
it be a
careless.
conversation you would have if, let's say, you were seriously dating somebody?
I think it was if it was seriously dating, because the possibility of it happening again would have been very likely. But it's interesting because I went out with someone who was significantly older. It was like maybe 7 years or maybe 5 years older than me. And the conversation came up. I don't think I had an episode, but the conversation came up, maybe because I took out my little mini fam. I had a mini episode. I took out my little health, my hand, and the person said, "Oh, you're going through the change." So immediately that person was able to clue in and understood what was happening. And I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
sometimes these things just totally overtake me, and so they understood. But this, no, was totally like, call 911 because something is going down.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, yeah, your dating stories are quite entertaining. Thank you so much again for sharing them. Um, so going through this point, because it's not something that ends, in 6 months. It really does take time, and you celebrate the moment when it does get there. You
Mhm.
get to the other side of it. Um, what have you learned about yourself in this process of changing again? Because you talk, we literally go through the book of every decade of your life, your experiences, and how you are growing. You're growing in your faith. You're
Mhm.
growing in your ability to decipher and discern what is it you're looking for, in your own discipline about your body. So now that you have had this introduction to this new version of Vanessa, how is she approaching all of, all looking at her past and now looking at what's ahead of her, knowing that she now actually does have the capacity to probably lose her temper and all of these other things? How are you now adapting to where you need to be next?
Well, I mean, for me, with still going through that whole menopause things, I think I fought tooth and nail about medication, and I didn't want to take medication. But talking to my GYN, she was like, I don't know how you survive, because we did like a blood test that showed the hormone levels in my body. And with that, she will say, like, this is impossible that you could be walking around like this. No wonder you're so miserable, because your hormone levels are like nothing. So with that, I was able to select a treatment that specifically targets my personal hormone levels and create a formula that would bring back into balance my hormones. So this is a company over in Arizona. It's called Women's International, and they get your blood work and they're able to mix a formula for you. You can either get
Great.
pills or you can get a topical. So I opt for the topical because it bypasses the major organs and it just goes straight into like rebalancing the hormone. And for me, it has been it has been night and day since I've decided to do that.
So let me ask you this.
Mhm.
What was your resistance to medication? Did you think it was a mind over matter, or I could just pray about it and God is going to deliver me? What was the resistance that you had to treating this with medication?
Well, I think it was two factors. The first is that me and the person like to read stuff, research stuff, and you hear women who are on heart therapy, all these negative things that would happen. And I'm like, do I want to subject myself to this if it's only I'm just gonna have to bear this out for like 3 or 5 years. And then the other thing was cost prohibitive, because I remember my doctor giving me a prescription to get a patch, which was going to be 2 weeks, and it was almost $400. And I
Wow.
was like, oh no, we're gonna find some food to address this this hot flash stuff. So I was drinking, you know, like all these different teas that people are telling me about, but I still wasn't getting the level of relief, you know. So for me, it was the cost factor, and it also was trying to avoid those negative aspect of stuff. But then when I found Women International, I found it was very cost effective. And because it was formulated just for me, I felt a bit more comfortable with that approach.
That's brilliant. It's so good that we now have science being able to support us through moments like this, because, like you said, it's not something that it's a short-term thing and then it moves on. It really becomes a significant part of your life. And our women are still caring, they're still doing full-time jobs and all of these other things. So you can't, you know, you don't get to sit home and just experience it. You still have to have a full life. So that's great. Um, Vanessa, before we wrap up this conversation, I want you to talk a bit to, you talk about being raised by a single mom. And so the fact that you didn't have a father figure in your life or any male relationships around you that could help you frame how you would navigate a relationship with a man. How can a single mother um, prepare their daughters and sons for having healthy relationships with the opposite sex in preparation for, you know, finding a future partner?
Yeah. You know, I think children are so much like sponge, and I think we observe and, you know, really soak up what we're seeing around us. So I think for the first and foremost is that create an environment where children are not exposed to negative relationship habits, because they're going to think that that's normal. So I think first and foremost, that is important for us to see that. And I think talking, especially women with daughters, you know, when that child reached to a certain age where they feel like they want to have a boyfriend, you know, really sit down and speak to them and ask them, like, you know, what do you think this is? Like, what does this mean to you? And by all means, if as a parent, I will steer my girl child away from any type of, you know, relationship that could, you know, deem very adultish, you know, at an early age, especially when they have their competing priorities with school. So I would encourage them to be more in a group setting where they could experience, you know, going out with a group of people of different sexes. And then you can, you know, see what you like, talk to different people, but to create this space of this one-on-one thing at such an early age, I would truly steer young girls away from that. And then also with our boys, you know, ensuring that they have that role model, they're seeing what that manly may not be in the home, but someone who could really take them and show them and talk to them about what you know, what a responsible man should be like. And then the other thing for young boys is to show them what it is to appreciate a young woman and what it means, you know, to speak to a woman in a gentle way, or, you know, because a lot of young men are looking at things or looking at rap music and all these other external influences that do not shine a very positive light on the opposite sex. So after a while, they start thinking that women are essentially objectified, and of no fault of theirs, they start singing these things and start acting because that's what they're seeing around them. So I would encourage, you know, single parents to really keep an eye on that. You know, if your son wants to cry, don't say, well, you know, man up about it. Like, let them express their softer side, because I think we as women, we want to see that side of them when we get into a relationship with them. You know, teach them how to listen, you know, because we want someone who's able to listen, you know. But I think we put these stereotypes on our children, and then they grow up to be the exact opposite of what we want as wives or
Partner.
husband.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very true, very true. So last question before we go. Your thoughts on online dating, using dating apps, dating services. Do you think that's something that even more women in the Caribbean should consider to find a partner?
Yeah, I mean, I think like all other things, we have all these tools at our disposal. And I think online dating is just one of the tools that we can use for dating. I've been on Match.com. My girlfriend, when I turned 40, she was like, no, this is not gonna work. We're gonna sit down, we're gonna write your profile, and you're gonna get on this thing. And because she was like, this is getting out of control. So I went on there and I met one person that I had one date with, and then I realized that it was just like a pickup thing. Like people were not interested in anything substantive. And I'm like, I'm not gonna be spending my grocery money on this thing. I am gonna and I remember it was Valentine's Day, and I said, you know what? I'm pulling the plug on this. And I remember telling my sister, and she said, no, 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 no. Valentine's Day is when people find love. Maybe you should give it another week. I'm like, no. I was getting frustrated, but I truly believe that you could find love on there, maybe going onto sites that are more, meaningful. And, maybe you might meet someone who genuinely have the same interests like you do. So I have nothing against that. I just think it's a tool that people need to use and use wisely.
Definitely, definitely true. And you have to be honest so that you can also get honest feedback about
Exactly.
which is your after. So you can't go on and be fake and then expect that they're
Exactly.
going to fall in love with you when you were a fake person. In the same regard, and trust your own intuition, I think, as well. Intuition, that is. And I think it's also just important that you be comfortable. So if maybe you're a gym rat, you love going to the gym, then
Mhm.
go to the gym or engage in the things that you naturally enjoy, because that
Exactly.
then gives you that confident energy that actually men are attracted to, and the kind of man you're supposed to be attracted to.
Yeah,
So
that is
Vanessa,
absolutely right. This is absolutely, and I'm just one thing. I'm just glad that you said that because I'm part of this. I joined these groups and all this stuff, learning about these things about singleness. And I'm part of this group called Love Life. With this guy called Matthew Hussey. I don't know if you know Matthew Hussey, but he's like this big guru around dating and singleness. And he
yeah,
talks about, do different things, the things you like, but do it differently. So you say if you go to the gym and you love going to the gym, maybe going to the gym at a different location because maybe they might have the same gym, but at a different location, or maybe going to the gym at a different time
fine, yeah,
that you might meet someone there, or even church, for instance, you might go to a different hour service, that you're accustomed to, or maybe visiting another church that might also open a door for you. And personally, me, I like doing things. I don't have a problem doing things myself. I take myself every month out on a date by myself, and it's very clear. I have very strict parameters around those dating experiences that I should not invite anyone. It's just me and me alone. I go to someplace differently every time. I must speak with someone either on my way there or when I get there. And once I'm done, I will journal about the experience. And when I tell my friends about it, they're like, girl, I don't know if I could go sit up in a restaurant by myself. I just can't do it. But for me is just, going, doing things for myself that I would appreciate someone doing for me, and showing
hmm,
myself the love and self-care that I desire for myself.
absolutely. I love that. I love that. Whether it's take yourself to the movie or your concert, somebody that's coming to town that you love, definitely don't hold off on your life just because you're alone. Definitely lean
That's right.
to it. Just do that. That's brilliant. So Vanessa, your big launch day is coming up. Tell us what we can look forward to and also how we can get a hold of this book.
So the big launch day is coming up on next Tuesday, April 23rd. It's World Book Day. It also happens to be my 54th birthday. So everything is just if you are looking for a copy of the book, it's a promotional price now. It's on Amazon at $4.99. Delayed, not denied. The journey of singleness, it's worth the wait. I will put the information here so you can go in and get your copy at Amazon. On the 23rd of April, hardcover copies would be available as well as paperback. They will be available for sale on Amazon. And then for my amazing folks back home in Montserrat, we will have the official in-person book launch on May 15th at Tropical Mansion Suites at 5:30 p.m. There will be an unlimited amount of book in stock. So I'm hopeful that people would, I'm going to send out it's like a semi sign-up sheet so people can secure their spot. And once we have gotten the number of spots for the number of books that will be available, we'll probably need to call it quits. So I'm excited about this project. Nerissa, this project did not leave me from the moment I started writing in January of 2020 until the day it was signed, sealed, and delivered on February 14th of 2024. It was the last thing I thought about at night, and it was the first thing I thought about in the morning when I got up. And the minute this project was done, those thoughts has totally disappeared. So I knew this was a divine assignment. And the word that I always heard from God was, your blessing would be on the backside of your obedience. So I am grateful for that.
Always. And you can feel it in every page, Vanessa, that you put your heart and soul and God's word into this book. I hope that women find it very healing. I hope they see themselves there. And I hope it also inspires them. If they've given up on love, that they're willing to try again and believe that God has someone wonderful for them, and that it doesn't matter where they are in the world, they literally can find that love. And God is not limited by location. He's not limited even by what we think we want, because his desires for us are always bigger and greater than we even want for ourselves. So if we trust him, if we love him, trust him that he is going to bring the right man into your life. That's exactly who you need to take you to fulfill the purpose that he has for you, and you for the purpose he has as well as a man. So God bless you. Congratulations on this book. I'm so happy that we got to spend this time together. I definitely will be giving the book another read, just because I think you packed a lot in there, and it's worth reading and then reading again. And for people who aren't big readers, it is not a big read. You can actually, it's 12 chapters, I believe. The chapters are very short, but you pack a lot. You also give us something to ponder at the end. So you can try to answer the questions at the end of each chapter. Something to journal about, probably, to help you work through what's there. So it's delayed, not denied. The journey to singleness, it is worth the wait.
Absolutely worth the wait. Thank you. And just to remind folks, there will be a journal that accompanies this book, sold separately, and I think it'll be beautiful for folks to journal along their journey. Thank you, Nerissa. I appreciate you so much, and thank you for taking the time to read the book, and thank you for taking this time to speak with me today.
It was my pleasure. Take care.
Okay.